Do you like storytelling? Or do you like me? Well, join me on April 27th at Caveat in New York City on the Lower East Side as I share a true story from my life on the show Risk. Created and hosted by my former guest and my pal Kevin Allison, Risk is the live show and weekly podcast where people tell true stories they never thought they'd dare to share in public. And here's a tip. Tickets are available now for $18 if you purchase them in advance, or, $20 at the door if you wait until the day of. Can't make it to New York but still want to catch the show? Well, the night is being live streamed via Stellar, and those tickets are only $15. Visit www.risk-show/tour for more details. That's www.risk-show/tour. Hope to see you there. I don't know if y'all have heard After Hours by Allie and AJ yet, but yo!
That's my Jawn! Hey yo, displace the guilt.
What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I am your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. John Barrowman, a.k.a. Nate 3.0. Back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. On today's episode, I am joined by singer-songwriter Dave Hause. We talk about his music and his career and the upcoming Sing Us Home festival that he co-created and curated that's coming up here in May. And we talk about so much more, and that's all, as I like to say, coming up in a bit here. But first, how are we doing, gang? We have officially made it through winter. And look, it may not have snowed really or been bad around these parts, but good riddance. I am so over being cold. I just want to shed these layers and be free, goddammit. And the quicker it warms, the quicker we get to festival season. Man, Philly is becoming such a great spot for music festivals. We've got Dave's new one, Sing Us Home, that we talk about here. We got Music Fest up in Bethlehem. We got Love from Philly. We got the Roots Picnic. We got the Exponential Music Festival. We got Philly Music Fest and the Center City Jazz Festival. And of course, all the radio station shows like the MMRBQ, the 104.5 Winter Jawn, Power 99's Powerhouse, and the XTU Anniversary Show. And that's not even mentioning the big granddaddy of them all, the Philadelphia Folk Fest, which sadly is not taking place this year, but hopefully, fingers crossed, will return in the future. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some others. Like, we're so incredibly lucky to have all this really great music in our hometown. So when I heard Dave was creating Sing Us Home, and I saw that it included our pals the Tisberries and Catbite, well, good golly, Miss Molly, I had a big old smile on my face. Because I love this damn city of ours, and I love watching it become a premier spot for music and music discovery. You know, we're lucky, folks. I hope we never forget that or become disillusioned by it, because our shit is dope. And you know what else is dope? Visiting www.yothat'smyjawn.com and signing up for the mailing list. All the cool kids are doing it. Are you a cool kid? Well, go do it. And while you're on the website, check out the shop link for some dope merch like t-shirts and all that. And of course, follow us on the socials at Yo That's My Jawn. Facebook, Insta, Twitter, YouTube. I'm trying to get a little more active with the reels and the shorts and the stories and all that stuff that, makes me sound like a goddamn dinosaur when I try to say them like the old dude that I am. So go follow them things and mock me in the comments if you must. I have tough skin. I can take it. All right, quick break, and then we'll be back with my interview with Dave Hause. Yo, That's My Jawn is brought to you by Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Take a seat. Let me explain. It's free. It costs nothing, $0 and 0 cents. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Me? I'm doing this from my iPad. It's that simple. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more podcast providers. What's that mean? That means when someone says, hey, how do I find your podcast? You go, you ever hear of a little app called Spotify? Boom, it's there. What's that in your hand, an iPhone? Boom, go to your podcast app. I'm there. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Right from the beginning, straight out the gate, you can make money. Season 1 made me so much money, I could afford a cup of coffee at Starbucks. A grande. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm. My guest today is a singer-songwriter who is set to release his 6th full-length album, Drive It Like It's Stolen. 10 songs featuring his trademark urgency and passion, shimmering with a truth that reflects the harsh realities of life in this day and age, as well as the intermittent jolts of joy that punctuate it. He is also the creator and curator of the upcoming Sing Us Home Festival, the new 2-day festival coming to Manayunk on May 5th and 6th, and featuring sets by Drive-By Truckers, Craig Finn, Kathleen Edwards, Lydia Lovelace, Tim Hause, Catbite, Cross Keys, the Tisberries, Circle of Sin, and the Ocean Avenue Stompers, and is hosted by Reuben Frank. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show Dave Hause. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great Dave Hause. Dave, thank you for joining me on Yo, That's My Jawn.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So in doing research on this, this is actually now 2 episodes in a row this has happened. I didn't realize how many times I've seen you play live.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because my fiance and I were big WXPN supporters. So I was going back counting the Exponential Fests, and I'm like, oh my God, I have seen Dave play a lot. Like,
yeah, for a while we had the record, or maybe we were in contention with Dawes,
who I just talked to, which is the funniest part.
Oh, did you? The band Dawes?
Yeah,
oh, yeah. They've played Main Street Music in Manayunk for in-stores on every record, as have I. And then they've played Exponential Festival a bunch of times. And for a while we were in the running, and then I think they got ahead of me. So
I think well, they had one year that they had to cancel out of because of COVID, and I think there was 1 year of rain. So you guys might still be kind of tied, actually.
Yeah. I don't know, but that's cool. Yeah, we were able to do, I think the Loved Ones. My old band played Exponential Festival back in 2008.
Oh, okay. See, so you might actually technically pull out there.
Oh, yeah, perhaps. But yeah, so that was the first time I had played it. I had attended it like way back. I saw Mindy Smith there when it was still on the Philly side. So I've been going to that thing in some capacity, whether playing it or attending it for, I guess, about 20 years. So yeah, I love that festival. It's great.
It's the best. Like, it's kind of, it's always been her and my kind of anniversary, and then they moved it to September. So then last year I had to propose to keep the anniversary,
congrats.
guys.
That's killer. Did you propose at the festival?
No, I did it the week before. We're that week that it was. I mean, they actually moved it this year, but the week that it has been the past 2 years is when we're on vacation in Cape Cod. So we've been missing like the Fridays and just being back in time for Saturday, Sunday. But they moved it this year, so we're good.
Yeah. I saw they moved it to September, and which actually worked out really well for us because we are launching our own festival, Sing Us Home Festival in Manayunk, and it happens in May. And so the further away you are from other semi-similar festivals, the better. I don't know how similar it is. I mean, somebody jokingly said, "Oh, this lineup looks like Exponential Festival like 5 years ago or something." but yeah, it was really great to get WXPN's blessing and their vote of confidence and their support on our festival, because like I said, I've been a fan of theirs and then played it so many times that it was exciting to have them be so fired up for us to start our own.
Yeah, totally. There's something about a festival to me that I think is like pure music discovery. Like it's a chance for like to get in ears that normally, and that's one of the things that I've always loved about the Exponential Music Festival is because they have such an eclectic kind of, swath of bands that like I know that there's some XPN listeners who've probably never heard, your stuff. And sure. They wouldn't actively go look at, something as, I don't want to say heavy, but like, XPN for a long time was known as like, the acoustic haven essentially, and,
yeah.
But like it gives that kind of opportunity. And now you're kind of, crafting your own, curating your own festival. What's that been like to kind of, take on an even larger responsibility at a festival?
Well, it's interesting because so much of it has to do with logistics and then also like city ordinances and things like that. We're doing it in Manayunk at a place called Venice Island, which a lot of people just weren't even aware existed. It's right off of Main Street. If you turn off of Main Street on Cotton, you'll enter where the festival is going to be. And it's a spot that holds a couple thousand people potentially. We can expand it and contract it according to how many people come. So it always feels snug. But half of it is on Manayunk property and half of it's on the city of Philadelphia property. So negotiating those logistics, like you suddenly are involved in city politics and civics and things like that, which was new to me. Our manager's really good at that kind of stuff. And so he kept his head in the game despite a lot of people saying, hey, why are you doing a festival in Philadelphia? It's so difficult to pull off. But I think maybe naivete and then also just, a stick-to-itiveness that he and I and my brother all have. We just sort of were like, no, we're going to love this thing to life. So that's a lot of it. But that's also, getting it set for the first year. As it develops, I mean, if we can be successful, we already have the second year more or less planned. And a lot of it would be like plug and play because we've done a lot of the work with the city and with the neighborhood of Manayunk. But it's interesting. I mean, the most fun part is cultivating the lineup and then as I started to reach out to old friends and businesses in the area that I respect or know or both. That part of it has been really fun. I feel like a little bit of grassroots community organization is kicking in, and getting to know some of the newer stores and vendors and things like that on Main Street has been fun. But a lot of that, honestly, is recent because up until essentially the announced day, we didn't know if we could do it. Like we basically had all these logistics going, and that takes so long to iron out that the window to construct a lineup was pretty small. And so we were sort of like, let's hope our lineup clicks into place. And it did. We're thankful for everybody who's committed to do it. And so once you have a lineup, you can actually go to somebody with a pierogi business or, a sandwich business or a beer, a brewery or whatever. You can't really go to them without a lineup and an actual thing. You could, but for more or less, I just wanted to be prepared. And so it was kind of like we had to have all these dominoes all fall. And so now a lot of it is just hoping that tickets sell and starting to market it and get the word out. I mean, all that is hard work and a lot different from getting up and just playing a guitar to a crowd of people.
Yeah, totally.
So it's cool. Like I'm always up for a challenge. I think like as I've grown and developed as a person, I'm always looking for something to kind of like put some new wind in my sails, and whether that's been start a punk band 15 years ago or pivot from that to a solo career and learn how to play acoustic guitar and be more of a songwriter, or fatherhood and moving to California. And like, there's just been, I'm never that, I'm always a little bit restless, and I'm never that comfortable with being comfortable. So I think, pushing into a new realm has been really, really exciting, and also has been a way to reinvigorate my excitement for not only my hometown, but like the various bands and businesses that are all rooted there. So it's been really cool, really exciting. That's a long answer, but that's kind of what it's felt like going into this.
No, man, that's beautiful. Speaking of it being, hometown, let's throw it back. When you were younger, where did you grow up? Right in Roxborough, right? Is that
Yeah, I grew up in Roxborough, in the middle of Roxborough for my first 10 or 12 years, and then I moved down by Roxborough Memorial Hospital right around when I was, I think, 12, and so I was frequenting Manayunk as Manayunk was starting to like gentrify and shift over into like the hipster town that it became. I was like maybe a teenager or something like that. So before it really clicked, you could go down there and see like, a pretty good street fight if you wanted to. And now it's like real bougie. It's kind of like a main line. It's not, I guess it's not real bougie. It's just cleaned up and it's got it back together, and it's not bougie at all, actually. But
I was just going to say, it's funny you say that, because I think one of the last times I was in Manayunk with my pals, like, and this was a while ago. This was probably like 6 or 7 years ago. But you remember that that food place that was like right by the parking lot that like was always open like until like 3 a.m. They did like burgers and stuff like that, like the tent all set up. Big, huge brawl broke out. I took a pair of keys to the face. Like it was, yeah.
Okay, well, and there's still some of that spirit,
I was trying to help break it up, and that was the dumbest thing I could ever do. Just let it happen, I guess. But
they say the first person to get punched is the person who steps in. But
that's right.
Yeah, it used to, I guess, bougie by comparison. Now I'm walking back that comment, but ultimately, like it used to be roughneck down in and then a lot of development came in and sorted it out, and the businesses became successful, and it became this like cool town, and mainliners would come over from Ballackinwood and all that jazz, and so I kind of watched that whole thing happen as a teenager, and so the original thought for Sing Us Home was to put it in Roxborough up on Ridge Avenue. I was thinking maybe we would do it at the park across from Leverington Presbyterian Church, Gorgas Park.
Okay.
But it just didn't seem like the best location. It seemed a little hard to put it all together. And then this Venice Island idea came together with our friends at Main Street Music there. I've been friends with Pat for like 30 years. And so he's the beating heart of the music scene down there. And so we put our heads together, and we initially were going to do it behind his shop, and there wasn't enough space. And so we sort of settled on Venice Island, which was like a good place to throw bottles when I was a kid. And now it's like this really sweet tree lined blossoming spot where we're going to do a music festival. So it's kind of cool to see it have improved so much.
Yeah, it's wild. Like one of the last times I was down, I got to walk around back there and all, and I was just like, this is like a whole other world. Like it's really nice. It's a really nice place. So when you were like a kid, what was like playing around the house? What kind of music were your folks into?
My folks were this strange mix of rock and roll, and then they were evangelical Christians. So they liked Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen and Dire Straits and Tom Petty, and but then they loved, Amy Grant and all this kind of jazz too. They were sort of trying to thread the needle between their fervor for Jesus and then also their excitement over rock and roll, I guess, from their teens and early 20s and stuff. So I kind of got all of that. And interestingly enough, I was like 7 or maybe 8 when the Hooters were really coming to prominence in Philadelphia. And so they had put out Nervous Night. And for whatever reason, it really spoke to me as a kid, as a little kid. It felt like something happening in my own backyard that I could root for. And the city was kind of all in on the Hooters, and so they were like the first band of my own. But yeah, it was like for me, it was like the tapes that I bought of my own were like Bryan Adams and Heart at the time. You know, I was getting into like rock and roll music, but then also Michael Jackson's Thriller and my folks like Chicago, the band from Chicago, you know, the band with all the horns and stuff. And so I was pretty well balanced in terms of the stuff I was hearing. And then because we were such churchies, I was always singing, you know, I was always around music every week. And so I, you know, growing up in a working class neighborhood, but then going to private school because my folks were so taken with Jesus, made for this interesting mix of you know, sacred and profane, and kind of like being pulled between different classes. And I mean, classes like socioeconomically, you know, sure. Like people in private school who had more money. So I wasn't in the public school system, but at home in our neighborhood, it was just like a rough and tumble working class background. So yeah, it was an interesting way to grow up. And music was always just so pivotal for me. It was just like the thing I was so taken with. And by the time I was 12 or 13, it was the grunge thing, but then also hip hop. You know, hip hop was a major influence on me. Everybody from Tribe to the Roots and all that was happening sort of New York and Philly, you know, all that stuff seemed to be dovetailing. And then I got progressively more into like hardcore and punk rock music as I was a teenager. So yeah, music was, and still is really to this day. It's like the lifeblood for everything I do. You know, it's been that way since I can remember. And, you know, it's like the magic in life for me.
Definitely. I feel almost exactly similar. Like we're around the same age. I'm slightly older than you, but but around the same age. So like it's essentially the same area. I grew up North Wales, Lansdale area. So in the burbs. So like it's like it's just very familiar. Like because I was the same way. Like you know, grunge was happening, but also that pool of hip hop was just like it was there. And then hardcore was like, oh, this is where I can release all of that, you know, like this is where I can let it ride. When did you start playing? Like what was kind of your entry point there? Guitar first or?
Yeah, guitar first. My dad is a guitar player. He's pretty talented. He can play well. And so he had guitars hanging around and amps and stuff like that. And I started maybe I guess it was like 7th grade. So how old are you then? I was maybe like 12 or something. I got a guitar and played with a couple guys down on Manioc Avenue, a couple friends of mine. We put a band together for a talent show at our school. And so that kind of, you know, it's funny because the bug bit me. It bit all of us in various degrees, but ultimately almost everyone that I've played with, you know, decided at some point to like get into another thing, whether that was when we were young, like they would get into art or they would get into sports or whatever. So I kind of on some level feel like the last man standing. And, you know, everybody's been super kind to me from all those bands, from my very first band all the way through now, you know, everyone's like still rooting, you know, go, keep going kind of thing. But yeah, when I started playing, I was a teenager and I guess the point of entry for me, it was hard to play metal music, you know, like that's kind of what I was initially into. And then as I got further into Metallica and stuff, I realized they like the Misfits and things like that. I got into, you know, through metal, I got into hardcore and punk, and the barrier of entry was lower. If you knew 3 or 4 chords and could kind of craft up something with a chorus, you could kind of get a show. And that was kind of part of what steered me in the direction of playing. And so my high school band, I was in with a couple guys that were older. They were out of school. And so we were able to do a lot of cool. We got to play the Trocadero. We got to go to New York. We got to go to Boston. We got to play with like some popular bands within hardcore, Kid Dynamite and Sick of It All and all those kinds of things, Madball. And so, you know, that was a nice taste of like what could be, you know, as a senior in high school. And the interesting thing, you say Lansdale and North Wales, the school I went to was in Erdenheim, so it was in the burbs. So I have a ton of friends from the burbs, and ended up landing in Ambler for years and years. I lived there before I moved out to California.
It's
So
where I
I'm
am right now.
in Ambler.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
no kidding! Rad. Yeah.
Yeah.
My best friend, two of my best friends are right there. One guy's in Fort Washington, Dave Adolph. He plays in Crossed Keys, who's playing the festival. And then my dear friend Brendan, I was playing in all those bands I was just describing. He runs the beer distributor there in Ambler Beverage Exchange.
Oh, no kidding.
You go in there and say hey to Brendan. He's the best. He's the best guy.
We I used to help out with we built a disc golf course in Fort Washington at the state park, and Ambler Beverage always would donate to tournaments and stuff like that, and I believe they still are with the tournaments. We're still going. Yeah, I love this town and love that place. Like
where in Ambler are you?
We're right behind the post office. So like 2 blocks behind the post office.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. I was on North Main Street for years and owned a house there and had a whole different life, so that's cool. I love Ambler. One of my sisters is still there. And like I said, I have 2 of my best buds are right in that area. So yeah, it holds a special place in my heart. I love Ambler Theater, to take in a movie there is always a treat. So it's one of the jewels of the suburbs, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like to tell this that my first in theater post COVID was, we went to the Ambler Theater to see Questlove's Summer of Soul. And it was the perfect, welcome back to film and life, I guess.
That was a great film, man. What a treat. That Stevie Wonder opening.
Oh my God.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that and the centerpiece with Mavis Staples in the Martin Luther King tribute, just absolutely fried me, man. It was that was such a film.
Yeah, incredible.
So you're playing in those bands in high school and stuff like that, and then eventually you get to the Loved Ones. And then you decide to do your own stuff. Like it's been a path of just continuing on to kind of, I guess, evolve into what you found to be your sound. Do you miss kind of that having the other people in a band essentially to kind of not have to be the primary decider of things, or do you like kind of leading?
No, I don't. I like sort of being in a benevolent dictatorship.
Okay.
I kind of know what I want. I know what I like, except for in the areas where I don't. And in those situations, I love input. I love, I love collaboration. Collaboration's great. What I don't love is not having the final word. and I think that over a long career, I think I've been able to get myself into a situation where I can successfully have the final word. And even with my brother Tim, which is he's my main collaborator in the last, especially 6 or 7 years. He now made his own debut record that just came out in January,
and it's phenomenal.
Right? So he just
I love it. Oh, it's so
thanks,
good.
Man. I'm glad you love it. And that was an instance where I was totally yielding back the final word, where it was like, this is yours now. If you want to leave that lyric in, you want to have that be the drum sound, you want to have, that's your decision. And it was really fun and really freeing to kind of not have to make those decisions. And at the same time, when we made my record that comes out in April, Drive It Like It's Stolen, I could kind of take even more artistic control of how I wanted it to end up. So it's a push and pull, but I do miss all the people that I collaborated with over the years. But I don't miss being in a full democracy. I think for me, that was frustrating given how severe I am about what I want to hear. And if you interviewed other members of the Loved Ones, they might tell you a different tale. I mean, we all love one another, but I'm sure they could be like, oh boy, it was tough at different points if, to be in a quote unquote democracy. But I think for me, what I miss is, and this is kind of what I've been working towards for most of my musical life, is I do miss sometimes playing more aggressively. And so you'll find on this record that's about to come out, you'll hear more of that thing that we sort of yielded from a little bit on the last record. The last record was a lot more acoustic. It was a lot more roots based. And this one has a little bit of the edge back. And then I've been listening a lot to this band Idols that I think is just phenomenal. They're out of Bristol in England.
They're one of my favorite bands, man. They are
they're
good.
So rad. Yeah. And it's got me back into that. Wait, maybe I should make like a really fired up, angry punk rock record. Or at least a more, not that they're fired up or angry. It's just that they're playing with maybe some brasher colors or something. I don't know how to describe it. I hate to describe music, but ultimately, I think I've been reading about this week. Elvis Costello is doing 10 nights at the Gramercy Theater, and he's doing 200 songs, right? And there's this writer for Spin that's like chronicling it all, and so he gives a review each day that I've been like pretty fascinated with. My kids are sick; they've got the flu. I had to fly home from Philly the day of the Super Bowl just to kind of like help out. It's been super hectic, and my only reprieve this week has been reading about Elvis Costello's 10-night thing. And I realized like that's the kind of career that I've been working towards is to just keep writing, song after song after song and making record after record that's different, that just follows the muse. Some of them are more successful than others. Some of them are more, they hit closer to the zeitgeist than others, but he just keeps working. And I realized like reading about his like 10-night stand, I was like, yeah, he's kind of more of an appropriate goal, to land at than say like Bruce Springsteen or whatever, The Clash or something. Like those are so outsized and so their own thing that it's unreachable, at my age with what we do. But he, obviously he's a household name as well, but it just seems a little bit more of a reasonable analog over a long period of time to be like, yeah, being able to do multiple nights in New York City and play 200 songs and have people be compelled by that because of your long artistry, that could be a thing, later in life.
That's awesome. Yeah. Elvis Costello is so good in that there's like he's built enough of a backbone that you trust that, like, you know what, maybe this album might not be for me, but I know the next one might, like right. There's no exit ramp. It's more just like, it's like, here's what I'm serving tonight. And if you don't like this, well, then maybe tomorrow's dinner will excite you. Joe Jackson That's was right. kind of the same way, like who, right. went and just started making weird jazz albums for a while. And then was like, came back and was like, oh, but also remember, I still do this. And you still love this, and I think that's a beautiful model to kind of set as a goal.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you got to follow the muse, you got to do what makes you excited. And that's what I've kind of always done. I think initially realizing that the loved ones just needed to come to a close, or was going to come to a close at the time it did, was frustrating. And then at different points through my solo career, it's been hard to get people to understand the songwriting element at different points. Now I'm less worried about it. We were sort of allowed in. We made a record in Nashville and got plenty of love, and it's just important to be yourself. Like that's actually the goal of artistry, is to like get closer and closer to the thing that defines you and makes you tick, and bring that to the world, rather than searching for a place to necessarily belong. Like you're going to bring people along, you're going to lose people, but ultimately I sort of feel like I've got a higher, I've got my eyes set up here, where it's like, I want to keep chasing the thing that I'm like intrigued by, and make songs in that direction rather than like, well, what's going to sell or what's going to, all that stuff you can't really control. You just kind of do your best and try to get the word out and keep going.
Yeah. I mean, I had a very, very small music career. I always like to disclaimer that it was small because I don't want to pretend that it was anything more than that. But one of the things I always struggled with was like I had two sides. There was all of this stuff that I wrote that I would never put out or play for anyone. And it's probably the better of the stuff that I've ever done. And then there's the stuff because like, being a guy who plays in bars and stuff like that, like I would write songs that I know I would get someone's attention with, so like, which is not to discredit those are very fine songs, but when I felt most rewarded is when I did what was true to what I felt. And that's the same thing with doing this podcast. Like, when I was talking to Taylor from Hause, I said, one of the issues I have is this balance of like looking at the numbers versus having good conversations. And this whole thing was birthed because I just wanted to have good conversations with people. So I shouldn't care about the numbers, but in the back of my head, I'm still looking at them, like.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's just, we live in a capitalist society, and that's part of the thing, as creative people, and everyone's creative. Everyone has a creative energy in them, every human being. That's a sensitive and vulnerable and really sweet thing that you sort of give the world as a gift, right? Like that's at its core, that's the best part of that energy is coming up with a cool idea and honing it and then giving it as a gift, right? But we live in a world of rent, and we live in a world of unfortunately of not in a world of plenty. There's plenty to go around. It's just there's not a plentiful mentality.
Yes.
There's and so ultimately you have to I found that you have to just keep some level of balance between those two things because, it's inevitable that if there's a metric, you're going to look at it, and depending on how you're wired, that metric can start to drive you crazy. Take, for instance, like Spotify. We became somewhat frustrated by Spotify and so decided to form our own record label. And I guess we were frustrated with the whole music industry, right? It's like, we need to keep more of the money. This doesn't seem like, if we could invest our own capital, we'll win. It'll be a big win for us, a small win for a bigger label, right? And so we did that and really have steered our fans towards our own record label, meaning more and more of our fans are buying more and more records, which makes us more money. It allows us to live off of our art. And then we've also seen Spotify go down a little bit. That's because our fans are buying physical copies of our records. Like we've seen those numbers rise. We've sold more copies on our own record label than we did on a subsidiary of a major label. But inevitably, you look at that monthly listen number, if you choose to, and go, wait, why are our streams down?
Right.
And it's like, well, can you have it all? So, and I think over time that number goes up and it comes down, and we're not playing the same game as Miley Cyrus or whoever is at the top of the streaming game. And just like we're not playing the same game really as anybody, as Dawes or Bruce Springsteen or Idols or whoever we've discussed. It's like you're playing your own version of the game, and the more you can make it that, the less you have to worry about each individual metric. You just keep giving that gift away, and it changes. Sometimes it's a festival in Philadelphia. Sometimes it's a new record. Sometimes it's the show you play in Cleveland that night or in Amsterdam or wherever we get the chance to play. But ultimately, it's like keeping that creative energy pure as you can, and constantly moving and changing so that you don't let that fire go out. And the best way to let that fire go out is to look at the numbers for too long.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm glad you mentioned starting your own label. So the first release was the last album, right?
Actually, we tried out the first release as a covers album in quarantine. I did half the record was Patty Griffin
Oh,
songs.
right.
And then the other half was Patty Costello from Dillinger 4 covers. And thankfully, I have a manager now who was like, this is a cool idea. You're the only person on planet Earth who has the same love for Patty Costello and Dillinger 4 as you do for Patty Griffin. This could only come out of you. You should make this. And we did it, and we tried to put it out on our own label and realized that we could. And we were like, wait, so if it worked and we did really well with it, why wouldn't we just do our own record? And so having that initial project be the guinea pig for Blood Harmony, which we did a year later, was really helpful, because if we had made Blood Harmony the guinea pig, I don't know if it would have been as successful, or, we would have been working out all the kinks on an actual studio album that we like spent money on and invested in and were kind of like riding on. So thankfully we were able to chart and do all the things that you want to do as a record label, professionally, because I think we did spend the time working the kinks out on that initial release of Patty. And that's like something that was really fun that I was able to like really work on in quarantine. Tim and I were emailing back and forth the files, and we made it wholly in our home studios. So yeah, the first official release was Blood Harmony. And then we put out Tim's record, and then Drive It Like It's Stolen comes out in April. So we've been on quite a tear.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and what a great lineup you guys have on your label. But what? So does that affect your thought process in creating a new album? So like, Drive It Like It's Stolen, going into that, now being the label owner who's releasing that, does that put any kind of voice in your head as you're creating, or is it just freeing? It's
freeing and it's not. In other words, knowing that we could theoretically spend whatever we wanted on the record because it's our money is freeing. I guess if we wanted to spend $200,000 on Rick Rubin and he wanted to make the record with us, we could. Knowing we would have a hard time recouping that fee, and determining what you do sets up limitations. Yeah. But those limitations would be there if you were on a major. Those limitations would be there if you were on an independent. Ultimately, I'm not really that excited about the idea ever of getting money that I didn't earn. And what I mean is, just give me a fair shake on every record that I sold. Don't give me too much and then I'm in arrears to a label. And then the same thing with live. Like, I don't want to play a festival show and get overpaid and not bring the people. I just feel good if it's like, I got paid fairly. I'm not really looking to like do a grift, especially at this age. Like, I've been doing it for so long and want to do it till I'm old and older and grayer. And so if you take more than you're worth, people start to go, let's pass him over. We'll give it to somebody else who's more deserving. So I think it's a long answer, but ultimately it's more like letting necessity become the mother of invention. So we spent a lot more on the recording process for Blood Harmony than we did Drive It Like It's Stolen. Because for two reasons. One, we made Blood Harmony. We did that. We had all these like big shot players on there, Bruce Springsteen's bass player and Brandi Carlile's drummer and Jason Isbell's guitar player. And all. It was incredible. It was awesome. And we made that record. It's that document of those songs. So I didn't want to redo that. I wanted to do something different anyway. And so you sort of go, all right, well, do we want to go to another fancy studio? Do we want to go to a cheaper studio? Like, what is it that's going on in my head musically that we need to get onto the tape? That's the goal. How we get there now is less about it being fancy and more about what's practical. Like, rather than hire an expensive horn section, if I don't need them to play it live in the room, which would be, a couple $1,000s or whatever, I was like, well, let's hire a couple horn players here and there and develop the parts as we go in a smaller studio where I can get the clarity of what I want to hear. Even if it takes a little longer, I'm not exactly sure what I want. So let's be able to work that way instead of having this incredible group of horn players come, need a chart, be done in an hour, and then you either get it or you don't. So it really just depends on the project. And in that way, it requires creativity and thinking on your feet, which I quite like. I like that challenge. I like letting necessity become the mother of invention. It's fun. It's fun to have to stretch and go like, all right, well, rather than spend more money, is there a more efficient way to do this? Is there a cooler way to kind of get from point A to point B? And then other times we'll make probably records that cost us more money just because it's like, no, we really want this incredible harpist or something. Who knows? I mean, it'll depend on what we, but I like having those decisions in front of me. And then I love working with our team, which is Tim and our manager, Alex. Like that brain trust is really cool. It's like, they're younger and they have different ideas than I do. And they also are able to kind of go like, well, what about this? And I go, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So I think like we work well together, and it allows me to make decisions differently than when there's just a set amount of money from a record label and here's when it could come out. I don't like having to work within those constraints anymore.
Yeah, no, that's great. Mentioning Tim, as you guys are now getting older and kind of working even more and more closely together, what's that been like? Like because he started like playing with you, and then now like you guys are partners essentially on not just your own stuff but his stuff. I don't know what that question was. I lost it somewhere.
It's one of the great joys of my life to be able to work with my brother, who's that much younger. There's a 15-year age gap. There's 3 sisters between us. We lost our mom when he was 11 and I was 26. So there's a lot there that could have led to drift. And instead, we talk to each other every day. We're very much enmeshed in each other's lives. We can count on each other. It's beautiful. It's awesome. I think that, like for instance, this past weekend, he had his first headline show at World Cafe Live. It was amazing. It was full. It was joyful. Everybody was fired up. I played guitar for him. Our keyboard player played keys. And, we were like sat as accompanist, and he was like stood up performing for the room full of people. And it was a big win for the family and for him and for our music. And so it's been tremendous. It changes, it changes here and there. I think the same thing will happen for him that happened for me between this record he just put out and the next one he makes. Like he'll have to make new sets of decisions, where he wants to make it, how he wants to make it. And will we write every song together from now till the end of time? Probably not. We've been on quite a tear. We've probably written 50 or 60 at this point, maybe even more, between when he started writing with me for Bury Me in Philly all the way to now. But, I'm sure there'll be opportunities where he can write in Nashville with other people. I mean, he lives in Philly. I live in California. The more we develop and the more we go, the more people we know, the more opportunities will just accidentally come where you're like writing with other people. But I think like it's something to be managed, but not like controlled, like you want to manage that relationship and make sure that you're being direct and fair and kind and considerate and all that stuff. But not try to like demand that it has to go a certain way. It's a very loving, familial friendship that has business implications now because we started this business together. But it's great, it's like one of the great joys of my life.
It's so cool. Like I it's one of those things that like I have a younger sister and she's not musical at all, but like I always like try to imagine what that would be like if we were trying to create something together, and I know that she would probably punch me in the face because I would just end up being so bossy. So I always like when I see that it works.
It may only work because we've never vied for the same resources. By the time he was he was a kid, I was an adult, you know. So for all intents and purposes, we've never had that like jealousy where it's like, oh, mom's giving you more attention, or we both like the same girl or something. Like that stuff has never happened. So where you're closer in age, there might be more of a you know, of a competition or something. But no, it's all love and it's great. And you know, our sisters are very much in our lives. They're my, you know, three other best friends, and they would not allow there to be any schism or rift. You know, like we work it through. If there's something that comes up where it's like, this is frustrating me, or I'm not getting what I need out of this situation or whatever, we just talk about it. You know, it's make sure that the relationship comes first and then all the other stuff. Like it's not worth any level of success or money or something in the music industry if you squander your relationship with your brother.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. That's so cool. One of the things from the past year or so that I thought was really awesome was I'm a big fan of Brian Koppelman, and to see like how much he loves your stuff, and then to have you on The Moment with him is just incredible. How did you first find out that he was that into you?
You know, people say a lot of negative things about Twitter, and I understand why. But Twitter is also a place where human beings can interact and great things can happen. And in this instance, I followed him. I'm a fan of The Moment. I'm a fan of Billions. I'm a fan of all that, you know, all the stuff that he's done. I loved Rounders when it came out. So I know who he is. I know what he does. And I was following him on Twitter, and somebody asked him what his weekend playlist was or something, or maybe he just tweeted it up, and it was like Tom Petty, Dave Hause, and somebody else. I couldn't remember who it was, but I was like, wait, what? And I had to look at it. I was like, oh, he listens to my music. Oh, so I DM'd him. I had seen that he followed me, I think, or something. So I had some hint that maybe he liked the music, or maybe he just was savvy at Twitter or something. I didn't know. And I said, hey, thanks for tweeting about Bury Me in Philly. Like, I actually just finished a new record called Kick. Can I send it to you? It's a mutual admiration kind of thing. And he was like, yeah, please do. And I sent him Kick, and he emailed me back saying he was rewriting a scene in Billions after hearing Saboteurs. He's like, I'm rewriting a scene just so I can use that song. We'll work out the money later with the lawyers and all that stuff. But I'm making sure that song finishes an episode. It's blown my mind. And I was like, wait, what? This is crazy. So, you know, up until that point, we've had a little bit of love from TV or something, but not like that. Like that was still like the most Shazammed song of mine, given that so many people watch that show. And so he made good on the promise. He put it in there, and we got paid really well for it. It was like an incredible opportunity. And he's kept in touch. He introduced me to Glenn Phillips, who's the singer of Toe the Wet Sprocket. He lives here in town, here in Santa Barbara. He was like, you guys should be friends. And now we are actually friends. And, you know, he's very much a connector and very much a creative mind, and someone who just loves process and you know, he loves creativity. He's on fire for that. I actually wrote a couple songs with him during quarantine, and we've become pals. I mean, we're both very busy people, so it's not a friendship that we can you can't rely on it in the way that you can one of 30 years or something. But in the last couple of years, it's one of those surprise friendships where I'm like, whoa, we're looking at things in a similar way, and we have a big admiration for each other, and hopefully he'll listen to Drive It Like It's Stolen. I just sent it to him, so we'll see if he gets around to it. But yeah, he's been really kind to us, really good to us.
Yeah, he's come up on the podcast a few times. I had Michael McDermott on the show, and and he found, you know, Michael and got him signed and stuff like that. And just he's somebody who I've always wanted to pick his brain, because he's had his hand in so much, not just in TV and film, but also music. It's like everything I love, he's kind of you know, come up in. So
I'm hoping I can get him. I don't know if I sent him the lineup for our festival, but I should. He's a big Craig Finn fan. He's a big Drive by Truckers fan, and I know I'm pretty sure he loves Kathleen Edwards too. So I would imagine he'd come down from New York if he's around. But the thing is, like, he's got multiple TV shows and lots going on. And when he's writing, he's like really writing. Like, writing for TV is crazy. Like, it's talk about collaborative and then taking that to the screen. Like, it's a whole thing. So when he's not busy, it's a little easier to kind of like, hey man, I got a song, or do you want to get on a Zoom or whatever. But when he's busy, and the same with me. If I'm touring or bringing out a record or something, it's just hard to carve out any time, with having kids and then also a creative life. So, but yeah, he's fantastic, man. I had another person who teaches at Wissahickon School District come up to me in New Jersey I guess it was a month ago. We played the Light of Day Festival, and a teacher there at Wissahickon came up and was like, hey, I'm friends with Brian Koppelman. That's how I found out about you. And I was like, whoa. And he teaches in the middle school there. So there's been a lot of Koppelman connections that have been really sweet.
Yeah, it's incredible. I got a question in on his last Q&A, and I was just like, all right, well, if I can't get him on the podcast, at least I got my question through.
Hey man, just keep doing you. There's stranger things have happened. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up on your podcast. He's a guy who's got a very overflowing heart for creativity.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Bringing it back to Sing Us Home. The lineup is, you just touched upon some of the people that are there. But what excites me is two of my pals are in this lineup. The Tisberries and Catbite. It's so cool to see them kind of get this opportunity and stuff like that. How did you come across putting that lineup together? Like,
let's see. I've been a Drive-By Truckers fan for 16, 20 years, something like a long time. And so they were on the wish list. Kathleen, I've been a huge fan of since her first record via XBN. We became friendly when I did the Exponential Festival in 2012, I think. And she actually came over to see us play. We played on a little stage in between, I think, the Avett Brothers and Wilco. We were on a tiny stage over at the BBT or whatever it's called now. And she actually came. She walked up while we were playing, and I had gone to see her. And so I just love her. And then Craig Finn, obviously, I've been, a fan of, and the Loved Ones tour with the Hold Steady. And so there's a long history there. And so that's kind of the headline-y kind of vibes. And then the smaller bands, so to speak, I'm just a fan of. I thought Catbite was great. When I heard them, my friend Andy Diamond turned me on to them. He's a promoter out in New Jersey. He said, yeah, you gotta, hey, he kind of talks like a guy right out of The Sopranos. D, you gotta hear this Catbite captivates an audience. And so he told me this. He was on one about it, and I checked them out. I was like, oh, this is great. And they're from Philly. I love ska music. And so I was excited about them and happy that they committed to it. And it was cool. I was walking into Tim's show to play, and the guy, Chris from Catbite, was like, hey dude, I'm Chris from Catbite. I bought a ticket to come see Tim. I was like, whoa, great to have you here. So they're locals, and they have sort of an open-hearted vibe. And I love that. Cross Keys are old friends of mine. I played in The Curse with Bo. I played in Step Ahead with Dave Adolph, and he's still one of my best friends. I played in Paint It Black with Dave Wagonshoots. They're terrific. Lydia Lovelace, I've been a fan of for a couple, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so. I love what she's up to. Who else is on? Oh, Tisberries. I got hip to them from Reuben Frank, the sports pundit. He's a friend of mine. He's played with us. And when's this going to air? This will
be March. Sometime in March.
Reuben Frank is going to be our MC for Sing Us Home, actually.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah. We just haven't announced it yet. But he hipped me to Tisberries. I knew there was a band with a member at Main Street Music. I knew, Pat's been telling me, oh yeah, Tyler, he works here, he's cool. And then I saw the Tisberries on Rube's top records of last year. And they were really high, maybe number one. And I checked out the record. I was like, whoa, this is great. That's the kid who works at Main Street Music. and put it all together. I was like, we got to have them on the festival. Like I hadn't heard the record. I'd heard about them, but I hadn't heard the record. I heard the record. I was like, we got to have them. And so right before we solidified the lineup, we called them. Of course, Tim's going to play, which is great. I'm excited to see him. And then my dad's band, they do Beatles and Stones and old covers and stuff. We're going to have them play just to give them a real thrill, like a proper big stage and get their vibe, get kind of the old heads. It's good to have some senior citizens play rock and roll music. So they're gonna play as well. I think that covers everybody, right? Is that
looks like yes, right?
Is anybody out?
What's your dad's band's name?
By Cat. They're called the Circle of Sin with a Y, so syncopation.
Yep. Okay. Ocean Ave Stompers, is that
Oh, the Ocean Avenue Stompers. Yeah, they're from Asbury Park. They're a brass band in sort of the New Orleans or the Mummers tradition, and they're going to be there as an almost like their own stage. And that's going to be very exciting. They're going to, instead of having a second stage, I was like, nah, I want to get people moving. I want it to be something different. And so we're going to give them a set list of punk and ska and rock and roll and hip hop and stuff. And they're going to learn all that stuff in a traditional kind of brass band feel. And they're going to play throughout the crowd. So that's very exciting. And then we'll hopefully get them up for a couple numbers from Drive It Like It's Stolen too, because there are horns on the new record. But so yeah, I'm super excited about them. They're almost like their own. They're almost like their own stage, and you'll see. Like it'll make sense once we do it. And in fact, on some level, I'm wondering if they'll be the only repeat if we go to a second year, because like it'd be cool to not repeat for a while, to like keep a fresh look. But they seem like their own kind of entity. So I got big plans for them.
That's super cool, man. That sounds super exciting. At this time, you want to go through the Jauntlet? These are my stock questions that I ask every guest because I like to pick their brain on things. First section is the one hit wonders. This is just kind of picking a favorite. The first one, Billy Joel or Elton John?
Billy Joel.
Yeah.
I mean, Elton John, if I hadn't been raised the way I was, where I was, and Billy Joel is just one of those big ones in our family. All my sisters love him. I think if I found them today, I'd go with Elton John, But for me, it's Billy Joel. He's oh my God, that's like the soundtrack to growing up for me. And there's just something very East Coast about being a Billy Joel fan. And let's face it, very punk rock, this guy. Driving around at top speeds in this race cars, drunk as hell on speed and everything else. This guy's a wild man, even up into his older years. Not that I'm advocating for that, but I'm just saying this is a true rock and roller. So I'm going Billy Joel there.
Perfect. Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
Joan Jett. My friend Michael McDermott, a different Michael McDermott, the drummer of the Bouncing Souls, former, is now her drummer. And so if I had an opportunity to be around either, I've met Joan Jett. She was super cool. I have not met Debbie Harry. Again, I think if I didn't have that tie to them, I probably would be more of a fan of Debbie Harry's music, Blondie's music. But Joan wins on pure cool and the fact that she hired my dear pal to be her drummer.
I love it. The next one, Aretha Franklin or Tina Turner?
Oh, you're killing me. That one is so hard. I mean, Aretha Franklin is just one of those voices. It's like one of the first voices you would hear walking into heaven, So I gotta go Aretha, but damn, Tina Turner in terms of cool and in terms of the soundtrack of my personal life, I might have to go Tina as like just more of what I'm influenced by. But Aretha Franklin, this is just one of the finest singers on planet Earth to ever live, especially in the last 100 years. It's Aretha by just a hair.
All right, good answer. Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Pearl Jam. Yeah, I here's the thing. I love Nirvana, but I don't put them on. And Pearl Jam has been a lasting, incredible influence on me for now 30 years, from 10 and verses. And I still listen to them. When they put out a new record, I still get it. Not that Nirvana has that option, but yeah, I think in terms of aging gracefully and their influence on culture, their influence on rock and roll, and the fact that I just put Pearl Jam on, I listened to 10 verses in Vitology every fall, right around when soccer season would have started as a kid, when I was getting all those records. And yeah, it's Pearl Jam for me.
Great. I love it. It's the same for me. I wonder if it's because we're as in close in age as we are, but like that
perhaps, yeah, perhaps.
That catalog is just, especially those 3 albums in a row, is just, and like it's from outer space to me. Like it's just they're so perfect. And
yeah, we had the opportunity to play Eddie Vedder's festival in 2018. The Mermaid got to play his festival in Dana Point down in Southern California. And just to have him welcome us there with that intense look that he has and his kindness, you could see that they're an extension of his humanity and his compassion. And I think as much as I love Nirvana and I love those records, I think the further I get from them, the more it's just so unsettling. And obviously, that was all baked in and that's punk rock and all that stuff. But I think there's a lot of great unsettling punk rock. And there's only one Pearl Jam, I think maybe that's kind of where I go with it. It's like, it's the embodiment of someone who's aged gracefully, or a group of people who have aged gracefully in rock and roll. And I think the thing with Nirvana is, as awesome as it is, it's still so unsettled and unsettling to hear that I just don't put it on as much.
Ah, respect. I like that. That's a good answer. Good answer. Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks?
Stevie Nicks, for sure. Janis Joplin, I love her voice. The artistry was never my cup of tea. And Stevie Nicks is the only person that almost got into the Heartbreakers, which are my all-time favorite band, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Her solo career is incredible. Fleetwood Mac is just so fucking incredible. Stevie is, people kind of bag on her voice sometimes, which I'm stunned by. It's one of the coolest sounding voices you can come across. I get it. It doesn't have the power of Adele or Aretha Franklin in that traditional singing way, but man, is it cool. And just a behemoth songwriter. Incredible. Stevie for sure.
Definitely. The big one, Beatles or the Stones?
The Beatles, of course. You just can't fuck with them. You have 3 of the greatest songwriters. When I took piano lessons as a kid, my piano teacher had these busts of the great composers, like Brahms, Mozart, and Beethoven, and maybe some other guys or whatever. And they were like little clay busts. And I feel like the Beatles have 3 of the rock and roll busts in the same band. You've got George Harrison. My son's named Harrison. John Lennon and Paul McCartney have, it's too much artistry and talent in one band to even keep up with. I love the Stones. The Stones more or less have been doing the same thing, which I love musically for most of their career. And I'm so happy they exist. But if you're making me do this, it's hands down the Beatles.
Right on, right on. The last one of the one-hit wonders, Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven?
Ooh, I think Bohemian Rhapsody, mostly because Freddie and Queen, what they were able to do, it's just astonishing. And I worked construction, residential and commercial construction in my early 20s. And I got Zeppelined out by a lot of like dipshit contractors who, that's all they would listen to. And it was like, Zeppelin's the best, man. And I love Led Zeppelin. I love Bonham. I love Page. I love all of it. But I just think it got pounded into my head so much by Philadelphia rock radio and the various, I don't know, like arrogant contractors that I was working with at the time, that I'm kind of like, enough with the Zeppelin thing. As much as I love them, as much as I'd watch any documentary that came on about Led Zeppelin, I'm going Bohemian Rhapsody over Stairway to Heaven.
Excellent. The next section is the top 10 countdown. These, as I'm sure you're well aware, being from where you are, you know that Jawn can be anything you want it to be. It doesn't have to be music, it can be anything. So the first one, what was your first Jawn? What was the first thing you were obsessed with when you were a kid?
Gotta be music. Probably Thriller by Michael Jackson. That really just captivated me. I was, oh my God, I opened the damn record up and he's got a tiger. The songs are out of this world. Eddie Van Halen's playing guitar on Beat It, so that's probably the first big fascination. I'd say maybe the Lone Ranger and Spider-Man too, right around that time, somewhere in that early childhood, they really captivated my imagination. So I'd say Michael Jackson and the Lone Ranger and Spider-Man were my first Jawn.
It's awesome. That is so cool. Number 2, what's your current Jawn? What are you into right now?
I'm very taken with this band Idols. I love them. I was late to the party. I had a lot of friends say to me, "Oh, you're going to love this." And I just skipped it. I didn't listen. Well, maybe. I get afraid these days of getting into aggressive music sometimes because I'm like, well, what am I going to do listening to a punk band at this age? I got, where am I going to put that on? Yeah. I guess at the gym. And then I get afraid that I'm going to end up, back in a band like that. I'll get carried away, because I love that kind of music. But no, I got into Idols and I'm very happy I did. I think they're terrific. They're funny and spastic and just I'm very much enjoying getting into their catalog.
I still am absolutely obsessed with them ever since I saw the Tiny Desk concert they did, which was
I haven't seen that.
Oh my God. It's so like, that was how I found them. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? Like, and then, they were one of the first like major indoor shows I saw post pandemic, at the Fillmore.
Where did you see them?
They were at the Fillmore in Philly. And, I stayed up on the balcony because I was a coward. But
was it wild?
It was the most insane thing I ever saw. In the very beginning, they're doing, I think they were doing Colossus or something like that. He stops in the middle of the song and he split the room, the entire Fillmore straight down the center. And then it was like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then like the entire place erupted. And I was like, I'm way too old for this, but God, I wish I was down there. Like,
man. Well, they remind me a little bit of the Bronx. But with a lot more going on in terms of the influences. I feel like but they give me the same feeling I get when I see the Bronx, where I'm like, oh, I want to break something. Yeah. And somebody else feels as mixed up and crazy as I do. It's very much those two bands hit that mark for me. But yeah, I'm excited to see them at some point. I might have to get my moshing shoes back on.
My fiance, the very first time she heard I like played her some of it, she was like, "Can you stop punching your chest?" I was like, "I can't." I was like, I'm driven to feel this music. Like,
yeah, I was told all about them by, like I said, by a lot of friends over the years, last couple of years. I mean, going back maybe even to 2018 or something. I forget when I first heard about them. But I saw him on Jimmy Fallon or one of the Jimmy's shows, and it was that newer song, "Can I Get a Hallelujah?" Oh yeah, from back now, whatever that one is. And I was like, okay, I'm in. what is this? And it gripped me. I went right into the record, and I was like, so I'm kind of going from this new record back and really enjoying it.
Oh man, you are in for a treat. Number 3, what was your first concert?
My first concert I went to was the Hooters at the Tower Theater in 1985. My uncle took me. He knew that I was super excited about rock and roll. He knew I loved that band, and he knew it was going to be an exciting thing to see. And so we were in the last row, or second to last row, I think. And he still talks about the mixture of excitement and complete fear that took me over when they hit the first chorus. Whoa, because when you're little like that and you hear a rock band, it can really knock you over. So, and I kind of haven't been the same ever since.
That's awesome. With that being as influential and as powerful as it was, what was it like working with Eric on Bury Me in Philly? Like, that had to have been pretty kind of.
Yeah, it was great. It was hard at points to be able to distinguish that feeling of like working with someone that impacted you as a young boy with like, okay, I'm also working with someone on my record. It was difficult at points to not go, let's just go with whatever Eric wants to do, because I was so reminded of like, this is my first hero, my first guitar hero, all that kind of stuff. But he was gracious about it, really sweet about it. And also, at different points, made sure that I didn't do that. He was like, look, make sure we make this the way you want to make it. And so, but it was great. It was really joyful to work with him. He's an incredible musician, and great to kind of extend one of my own roots into Philadelphia rock roots, like to kind of have that link in a chain to like the city and the area was really cool.
That's great. Number 4, what
you
was your
interview him on this, man?
I would gladly, any day of the week. I had we had Andy King on, who played bass
cool.
back in the day for them. But yeah, God, I would love to talk to Eric. Like I just saw him. He came out and played him and Dave and God, why am I blanking?
Rob
Rob. Oh, at the Low Cut Connie show. That's what it was. They came out. Adam brought them out, and that was absolutely nice. Stellar. Yeah. Number 4. What was your last concert?
That I attended?
Yes.
I don't know. I saw Jackson Browne with my wife since the pandemic. That was awesome. Maybe it was Jackson Browne. I don't know. Oh, it's just, that bugs me. I don't know. I think it was Jackson Browne.
Yeah, that works.
That's going back like almost a year. I don't go to that many. Oh shit. I don't know, man. I think it must have been Jackson Browne.
Okay.
That seems like a long time ago. I don't go to that many shows because I play so often and tour so often that when I'm home, I actually try to avoid it.
Yeah.
If I can, unless I know the band's going to be like, just like my wife and I are going to go see AFI play their Singing the Sorrow record in March, because they're old friends of mine and she's a fan. And I know that's going to be a special thing down in Los Angeles, but I kind of like save it up for certain events like that, because I'm older. I like to be around my kids.
Yeah, no, respect, much respect. Number 5, what was your favorite concert? What was the best show you ever saw?
I don't even know. I think for me, probably Petty. I saw Tom Petty in 2008 or 6. I can't remember. It was on the Highway Companion tour, and I brought this kid that was working. I was in construction. I brought this kid that was working for us, who was a big Petty fan, and it was just joyful. It was so awesome. Probably Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Perfect.
Or you know what? Actually, it was on the final tour he did. The final tour he did, I went with my wife and Tim and Tim's wife, and we had box seats due to Mike Kimball's guitar tech being a fan of ours, which was incredible. And it was like sheer joy. You know, everyone was crying when he came on. It was just like our church. So yeah, probably those two Petty shows.
Perfect. You know, Tom Petty's one of those people who, like, I constantly forget is not with us anymore, and then when I remember, I'm like mourning all over again. Like, it's just like, oh fuck, that's right, you know, like, yeah.
American treasure.
Absolutely. Number 6, who have you never seen live that you wish you would have? They can be living or dead.
Elvis Costello.
Oh, you've never seen it? No,
I've
finally got
never
to see him at the Exponential Music Festival. I guess 2 years ago or something like it, 2 or 3.
I should have gone. I sent our rhythm section went that night, and I hung out with my sisters because we had, you know, tickets through. I don't know how we got them, but I was like, oh, you guys go. I'll just hang with my sisters, and I haven't seen them. There's a long list, though. I mean, The Clash, Idols. I haven't seen Dolly Parton. Yeah. I haven't seen Brandy Carlisle yet.
Oh,
I've been a fan for many, many years. I've never seen her live.
She's just as beautiful live as she is on record, if not more. Like, just absolutely stellar.
I bet. Yeah, I'm excited.
Number 7, name an unappreciated Jawn, something you wish had a little more shine to it.
Unappreciated. Music or just anything?
Anything.
I guess we could stick with music. I don't think that the Roots get enough credit. You know, I think the Roots is like, let's stick with Philly. Let's stick with music. I think the Roots really should be celebrated as like America's great band, especially since the Heartbreakers are done. You know, they get props, but they're not like celebrated in that way where like this is pretty much the best America has to offer in terms of a band. So I'd say the Roots.
Definitely. And like, to me, like Black Thought's like a top 3 MC of all time, if not number 1. And I feel like nobody ever gives him the respect that he deserves. Like, he's just phenomenal.
Yeah, he's so good. It's nuts. He did get a lot of hype a couple years ago when he did that. There was something went viral that he did. Maybe it was a freestyle. I can't remember.
The Hot 97 freestyle, maybe, or the one with
I think
Sway
that
in the morning.
gave him, people started to go like, oh, okay, maybe he is one of the best. But yeah, I'm with you, man. He's underrated.
Tops. Number 8, favorite album.
Probably Wildflowers by the Heartbreakers, or by Tom Petty. Really, it's not a Heartbreakers record, but yeah, probably Wildflowers. That's that or Full Moon Fever. I'd probably put on most readily. Joshua Tree is one of my favorite records of all time. London Calling, and 1,000 Kisses by Patty Griffin. Those
beautiful.
Those are like my big go-tos.
Yeah. It's great. Number 9, name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they release.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Right.
Yeah.
On.
I'm at the ready whenever there's I'm like, I want to hear it. When's it coming out? If it's coming out at midnight, I might not stay up that late, but I'll be ready in the morning to download it and listen to it and assess what she's up to. I think that, in the instance of Taylor Swift and Bruce Springsteen, what you're looking at is like two people at the absolute pinnacle of what I do. They make up songs and share them with people, right? In a traditional commercial kind of way. And so I'm always curious what they're up to and how they're delivering what they're doing, particularly her, because I think I've been rooting for her for a long time. And initially when I said she's going to be one of the greatest of all time, she's going to be up there with Dolly Parton, to songwriting friends of mine this is back 15 years ago, I got like scoffed at or whatever. And they're like, get the fuck out of here. What are you, crazy? And I was like, you just wait. And sure enough, she has proven herself to be one of the greatest, most impactful, most connected songwriters of all time. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the growth is just like it blows my mind. She could have very easily sat in kind of that 3.5 minute pop song lane, but these last three albums, she's just like, this is what I'm feeling, and this is what you're getting, and it's been really great.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's crazy. It's not even necessarily that I'm going to always be emotionally compelled by it, meaning like some of them, it doesn't always connect for me, but it's always interesting. It's always compelling. It's all because so much of what she does is also in the way she brings it to people. That's so just creative and well thought out. I mean, she's spectacular.
Yeah, methodical as a trait as a compliment and nothing more than that.
Yeah.
Like, it is just
Sure.
it's great. The 10th and final of the top 10 countdown. What is your favorite Jawn of all time? It can be anything you want it to be.
Whew. I think just a day in the sun with my wife and kids. If we're in the park or we're taking a little ride, going to get some pizza, just a simple day where we're all together, we're all healthy, we're all feeling good. That's about as good as life gets.
Oh, beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. Well, okay. So we got Drive It Like It's Stolen coming out in April. Then we got Sing Us Home in May. Are you touring on this album or?
Not exactly. What we're going to do is we're going over to Europe in March just for a couple shows, some private shows in Germany, a private show in the Netherlands, and then 3 club shows, London, Manchester, and Amsterdam. And there'll be preview shows of the record. And that's it. We're doing that in March. In April, we'll do some record stores. We're going to warm the band up towards the end of April with really small shows in Toronto and Boston, really small, like we might do 2 a piece in those towns, but it'll just be to kind of get the rust out of the gears. And then all of our focus is on the festival. We don't have a ton planned beyond that. We have some stuff in the works, but we're not touring really with the band this year. It's all geared towards the festival. We really want to build that and make that a place where we can put a lot of our energy. I'll tour with Tim. I'll tour with Tim and Mark, our keyboard player. We'll do some trio stuff at different points. But yeah, the thing we're mostly focusing on is bringing out the record, playing some shows, and then delivering the festival. So it's awesome. A different year, man. I'm used to like putting out a record and playing 90 shows, but not this year.
It's awesome. It's absolutely stellar. And like, if anything, if the rest of the album is like Hazard Lights, I'm going to love yet another album you put out because
awesome. It's
just absolutely stellar, man.
Well, on Friday we have like the most up-tempo rock song coming out, which is a song called Damn Personal. And so that's about the loss of a friend, and it's got a real heartstrings puller kind of vibe. And so I'm excited, man. There's a lot to be fired up about. There's a lot to be kind of a little scared about. Things are different. We're doing things differently, and there's always a little bit of like, oh, this is going to work. But nothing ventured, nothing gained, and it's good to shake it up.
It's awesome, Dave. Thank you so much for doing this. If the folks want to find you on the internet, what's the best way to track you down?
On Instagram, it's just Dave Hause. That's Hause. Our website is davehause.com. And then from there, you can get to the store, which I think is store.davehause. That's our record label is all based there. And then on Twitter, it's Hause Dave, Hause Dave. And Facebook, it's Dave Hause Music, I think. But basically, if you put in Dave Hause to Google, you'll get everything that you need, and just don't spell it with a no, because that would be Dave House. But yeah, that'll get you where you need to be. We're up on Spotify and Instagram and all that other stuff, and all the places you can find aspiring musicians.
I appreciate this so much, and I appreciate the music you create, and I'm so glad that you're able to kind of put this festival together to kind of just sing us home, essentially. Like it's so dope.
Such a thrill to meet you and be able to do this. This has been really fun, and it's crazy how many connections we have locally and and how many of the similarities in our in the things we like and came up with. And so it's always cool to find a new friend, especially when you're doing kind of press stuff. It's been a treat. So thanks for having me.
My thanks again to Dave for joining me on the show today. You can find out more about Dave and links to his socials and his brilliant music by visiting his website at www.davehause.com. His latest single, Low, as well as Damn Personal and Hazard Lights from the upcoming Drive It Like It's Stolen, are streaming now wherever you get your music from. And Drive It Like It's Stolen is set to be released on April 28th and is available now for pre-order on Dave's website. Tickets are now available for the Sing Us Home Festival, and they're going quick, so do not hesitate to pick them up. The fest is May 5th and 6th on the grounds of the Performing Arts Center on Venice Island in Manayunk. Visit www.singashomefestival.com for tickets and more information. Links to all of those will be, as always, in the show notes. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. And it's never too late to get yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout Merit Badge for citizenship of the world just by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for articles, merchandise, and links to all of the previous episodes of this podcast. And guys, while you're there, be sure to sign up for our mailing list to get all of the updates delivered straight to your inbox. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YoThat'sMyJawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Yo That's My Jawn, and search Yo That's My Jawn on YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out and touch some Jawn. Okay, I know we all got used to this weekly thing, but don't be surprised if we take a break next week. I don't know for sure, but Katie and I are taking a trip to New Orleans at the end of the month, so my schedule might get a little wonky in there, but who knows? Keep an eye out on the feed. Blue skies. Until next time, everybody.
Hey yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Your taste in music doesn't have to be.
Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production, written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by Phil Tyler Music featuring Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Natalie Runkle, and the incredibly brilliant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com. Or you can leave an audio message for us and possibly hear yourself on a future episode by visiting anchor.fm/ytmj/message. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure and shout to the world, yo, that's my Jawn.